Welcome to the August 2014 IDEA Virtual Users Group. Today I'm going to show you some of the exciting, but I think underused capabilities in IDEA. We're going to explore @functions, built-in macros inside of IDEA. Specifically, one of the brand new functions implemented in version 9.2 called @similarPhrase that uses Levenshtein distance techniques to do fuzzy matching. Then we'll see how IDEA can help save more time and effort by creating scripts from the work that you just completed, all without having to know a single bit about writing a line of code or creating a script. The utility is called Project Overview. I'm Scott Smith, the Sales Engineer and Solutions Manager at Automation Services, and my role is to help our clients and users of IDEA get the best value out of the software that they purchase. IDEA version 9.2 contains 115 @functions. These are macros that were created specifically to make manipulating your data easy. Once the data is imported into your project, you can use these functions to do very relevant and effective analysis of that data. You can manipulate the data column by column, all without affecting the values that you've imported. There are 6 basic categories that these functions fall into. There's character, numeric, date and time, matching, conditional, financial, and then just for fun they've included a custom functions category. The custom functions categories let you create your own functions that's specific to your industry, to your job. Included in the menu system, share it with your colleagues. It's all about building that library of functions that allow you to make your life easier. I took a quick poll of the help desk and talked to the guys that the ones that help you out when you have problems and you have challenges using IDEA, and said, what are the most commonly used @functions? What do you hear about the most? And this is the list that they came up with. Some of them are pretty easy to use, some of them a little bit more challenging, but all of them are effective in getting results, and we're going to actually use 2 of them in conjunction with the @similarPhrase today. I'm going to use the just numbers to strip out all of the words, all of the spaces, dashes, dots, periods, special characters and whatnot from an address field. I'm going to use the @left function because some of the addresses, some of the zip codes got entered into my data set with the +4, and I want to strip that off because it kind of muddies the water. So we're going to use all of those, kind of group them together, and then get a really effective result. How can I learn about all of the @functions? Well, there's a couple of ways that you can do that. Simply open up IDEA and click on the question mark that's in the upper right hand corner. That's going to bring up the IDEA help. Inside of IDEA help, go to the index on the tab, put in an @ and it's going to jump right to the @functions and give you a list of every one of them that are available. And then from that point, all you do is go over to the right hand side, click on one of them, and it'll give you more detail about that particular @function. Best way to learn them is just kind of scroll through them, click on them, look at the name, and then kind of relate that to the functionality, what it actually does when you're using that. Cool thing is, over here in the right hand panel, it's detailed instructions, what it does, how you use it, how you type the words, and then if you type those words properly, what the result's going to look like inside of your column. Other way to get to it is on virtually any of the analysis techniques that you are going to run, such as direct extraction or joining or summarizing or whatnot. There's always a place to put criteria. A criteria is a filter. You're going to filter the data down in conjunction with doing the analysis procedure. It pops up the equation editor. The equation editor has a center panel that has a list of all the @functions. We'll show you this in a couple seconds too. Each one of those @functions, all you do is click on it, and then in the right hand panel it gives you detailed information on how to use that @function. They make it pretty darn easy on you. Where can I use them? Well, I mentioned the equation editor. The equation editor is primarily where you're going to implement the @functions. Right here in the middle panel, this is the equation. You're going to type it. Column 1 plus column B. Column 2 divided by column 3. In the middle of the section, all you do is expand one of the individual categories, and it'll give you a list of the @functions that are related to that category. Inside of the category, click on a function. In the right hand panel, shows you detailed instructions on how to use it. And a little bit later, I'm going to open this guy up, put an equation into effect and show you how to use that equation editor in a live demo. So let's recap. You're going to use the at functions by opening the equation editor, various methods. Click criteria in the properties panel. Go to any function, any analysis technique, direct extraction, joining, summarizing, you name it. There's going to be an equation editor or a place to put a criteria. Click on the little calculator button and it opens up the equation editor. Inside the equation editor, expand the section that contains the type of analysis that you want to do, or the type of function. Is it character? Is it numeric? Is it date and time? Follow the pattern in the middle section, the middle panel, and when you're typing the data inside of the equation panel, it's going to be red and it'll go to blue and green. Red means you got a little bit of work to do. When it turns to blue and green, it means you're good to go. You've got the equation syntax correct. Now, however, just because all the red goes away and the equation is valid, that does not mean that you're going to get the correct result. All it means is you typed the equation correctly. That brings us to the next step. That's evaluate that equation, just to be sure. Typically what I do is I have an equation in my mind and I know what I expect as the result. I'll go into the equation editor, I'll start putting that equation together, and then midstream I'll evaluate that equation, and then I'll test that against what I expect my result to be. It's a great way to try it before you buy it. After you're good with it, after you're confident that you're getting a good result, save that equation. I want to reiterate that. Save the equation. It goes into the library in the equations folder. That equations folder can be migrated one step up to a local library where you can share it with multiple projects. It's a great time saver. When you're all good, click the green check mark in the upper left corner and it will actually allow you to run that equation through every row in the data set and add the column or extract the data based on your equation. Alright, that brings us up to the holy grail of all of this at functions and predefined macros and whatnot. We're going to automate these processes. Way back when, we were told that computers, applications and whatnot were going to be our savior. Basically, they were going to do the dishes and wash the dog for us. Hasn't quite gotten there yet. There's a whole lot of magic that happens in there somewhere, and we need a little bit more detail about that magic. What we want to do is be able to kind of demystify that. We want to show you how to create these automated processes without really having to get under the hood, without having to know how to do a whole lot more than completing the work from start to finish one time. Project overview. What is it? It's a macro recorder. You're familiar with the history in the properties panel on the right hand side of IDEA. Well, project overview can be found on the home tab on the main ribbon right there. It says project overview. At any point, if you click on project overview, it opens up a little utility that records not just the history of a single file, but how all of the files, all of the data sets that you've imported or created within your project, how they react with each other, how they interact with each other. It's project wide. And it allows you to reverse engineer any one of those steps to have IDEA create a script for you. It's a great time saver. This is what project overview looks like when you click the button. There you can see I've imported a master vendor and employee file, an ABC company journal entry detail, and an invoice detail. The lines indicate the results. I used the vendor and the employee and did a join by employee address. I did a second join on address and zip. I did a visual connector join and whatnot. These are the final results that are recorded and documented for you in Project Overview. The button right here allows you to reverse engineer that and have IDEA create the script for you. And there's two flavors. There's Visual Script and IDEA Script. Which one do you want to use? Let's recap one more time. Click the Create Macro icon. Choose the good or desired final result, which is the last box in the string of boxes on the right. Right-click on the box to have IDEA inherit all of the properties that were needed to create that result, or manually click on the boxes one at a time to choose just the steps that you're interested in. Now I'll demonstrate this a little bit later in our demo. You need to select Idea Script or Visual Script. And what's the difference there? Basically, the difference is, are you leaning towards being a geek, a programmer? Or are you wanting to just stay on the human side where you just need to get the work done? The Idea Script is Visual Basic for application code. It allows you to do tremendous, very, very complex scripting and programming using Idea's built-in capabilities. If you have somebody on staff that understands Visual Basic for applications or programming logic, they can use Idea's built-in language editor to write full applications using Idea's Visual Basic script. If you're not into that and you just want to record your work, get to a final result, and you know you're going to do that work next month, next quarter, whatnot, have Idea create you a visual script. It's just a flow chart of what we've done and how we got there. Either way works. It's just about how complex and how much on that geek side you want to be on. Finally, you select Finish and Idea creates the macro for you. And it's going to be stored by default in the macros folder on my current project. This is what each one of the screens look like. Idea Script, Visual Basic code. You need to understand programming language a little bit in order to go down this pathway. Not completely, because Idea wrote all this. You didn't have to do any of it. You had to complete the work one time. Visual Script, just a flowchart. You can see it shows in a flowchart manner that I imported, I appended, I import, appended, and then I joined. Much easier for regular people that want to just get the work done to actually accomplish the task. Either way works. You just need to choose which side of that street you're on. And of course, the results, when you save that macro, it gets saved into the macros folder on your current project library. You can see the current project library, that's always the project that you're working on. And it changes with each project that you have Idea select for you. The local library sits just up above the current project, and you can right-click on that fuzzy address matches and say copy it to the local library. That makes it available to any current project. You just bring it down and you can use it. As long as the columns in the table are the same, it doesn't matter. You can use that script over and over and over again, save yourselves a tremendous amount of time. All right, recap. Project overview, the script is saved by default to the current project library. Right-click and copy to the local library or to another project library so you can use the work that you've done. That's a great way to do it. To run that script, you go onto that main ribbon and choose the Macro tab. Double-click on the script in the library to run it, to open it. Go to the Library tab in the File Explorer, into the Macros folder, into the current project, and you'll see the list of the macros that you've saved. And then you can just double-click on it and run it from there also. They make it very easy on you. I encourage you to try all of those methods just to kind of get yourself familiar with them. All right, so let's go ahead and jump in and open up Idea and do some of the @ functions, show how to implement or create a script in Project Overview, and have it saved to our library. Give me a second. I'm going to tab over to Idea. All right. Idea version 9.2. You can see the ribbon across the top. I've got two files already imported, my master employee and my master vendor. Typical information across the top of the screen. Address, character type, zip, character type. But you can see it's got that silly +4. That kind of muddies the water. So we're going to use a couple of built-in functions to kind of append the address and the zip together, strip off this +4 stuff so my match is a little bit more consistent, and then do the Levenshtein distance techniques to see how those addresses slightly differ from each other. All right, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to double-click anywhere on my data to open up Field Manipulation. Field Manipulation shows you the structure of the data set as it was imported into Idea. We don't care where the data came from, whether it's an ERP system, a PDF, an Excel, an Access database, it doesn't matter. Once it's in Idea, it's letters and numbers. So the data source makes no difference. Once it's in Idea, you're not connected to that source any longer. you've got a read-only snapshot of the data at that point in time. The field manipulation not only shows you the current status of the data set, but allows you to append data to that data set. Click Append, and I'm going to call this the new vendor address. I'm going to leave it as a virtual numeric data type. The column is going to be virtual numeric. What that does for me is allows me to create an equation and test it. If I'm not happy with it, I can go back and open that equation and try it again. It's a great way to prototype. Make sure that you're on the right path before you actually buy the whole equation. So 0 decimal places, because I'm going to strip out all the character data, spaces, letters, dashes, dots, special characters, whatnot, leaving the numbers only. House number, street number, zip code. Click on Parameter and it opens up our equation editor. This is where you type your equation. The equation editor always works on the columns that are present in the data set that was open when you opened the equation editor. Middle of the screen shows all of the functions. You can just open it up and scroll down. We're going to use the left function, and it says @left returns the specified number of leftmost characters. We want 5 zip code characters. Put your mouse over here in the equation editor, and there's a couple ways to get at this information too. I can double click on a column, or I can simply start typing the name of a column. Either way works. So now I've taken the address and the zip and put it together as a single column. Let's evaluate and see what that looks like. And you can scroll through the records by using the test equation. Alright, so we can see we've got the address and the zip code all together. I want to take care of that +4 part of the zip code by using the @left function. Put your mouse in front of the column you're interested in working on. @left goes from red. When I complete the equation, I want 5 characters. Close the equation, all the red's gone. Now I've got a valid equation. So let's go ahead and evaluate that guy one more time. No more +4. So I've got address and zip code. The last step that we want to do is encapsulate the whole equation in another very powerful function called just numbers. What this does is it gets rid of my character data. So when I do my match, I'm matching it on numeric data. The whole concept here behind this test is to say somebody entered the address and they spelled out the word street. The next time they shortcutted it to STR. The next time to ST. The next time to STR period. We need to take that out of the mix because we don't know if it was on purpose or if it was an accident. So we need to get that out of our equation. So let's go ahead and use just numbers. Put your mouse in front of your original equation. Just numbers. Open your bracket. Move to the end. Close your bracket. All of the red's gone. Means I have a valid equation. If I evaluate it now, you can see house number, street number, zip code, no +4, and I can page through my records and say I've got a good equation. Now if you use this equation time and time again, go ahead and save it. It's going to put it in your library. Next time all you have to do is open that equation up. If one of the column names change, if something is different, it's going to show up as red, and you can fix it with that saved equation. Click OK. And by clicking OK again, IDEA runs that equation through the whole record set and adds a column called New Vendor Address with the data from the address and the zip minus the +4. Let's do the same thing on our employee file. I'm going to append a new column in the employee file the same way that I did to the vendor file. Double click, append a column. We'll call this one the new employee address. Virtual numeric, 0 decimal places. Click parameter, open up our equation editor. So let's walk through the same process. We're going to do address 1, which is the name of the address column in this data set. We're going to append the zip code to make a single column out of it. Evaluate it. Looking good. Get rid of the +4 @left. I want 5 columns. Evaluate it. Good to go. And strip out all of the words at just numbers. All right, let's see it again. Evaluate. Now we've got no street names, no address names, no nothing except the address number, street number, house number, and a zip code. Click the green check mark, say OK, and we should have a new column in this data set also. Address, zip code, no +4s if there happen to have been any. So we have basically just added new data to our data set. You notice it's in a new color. That means that it's not original data and it's virtual. I can go back in and change that equation if it doesn't give me the result that I'm looking for or hoping for. All right, so now what we want to do is join these two data sets together and see if that number matches any of these numbers. And I'm going to use another built-in capability and idea that's located on the analysis menu. I'm going to use the visual connector. Visual connector allows me to join multiple data sets together and use a pretty cool technique to do it. My vendor master was active when I opened up visual connector. So it's my primary table. These are the columns that are located in the primary table. I can go through and say, you know what, I don't need to see that one or that one in my output. And we'll look at the rest. I want to join this to my employee table. Double click on it. It puts it into your palette here. And expand it out a little bit, and you can see, okay, I don't need to see employee name or suffix or description, but the rest of them are good to go. And this is how you effect a join in Visual Connector. The column you want to start with on your left-hand side, left click, drag to the right, and drop it on top of the column you want to join to. IDEA creates the join from the primary to the secondary. I can have up to 7 secondary tables for each primary. Makes it a great way to get a full view of the data based on different tables containing bits and pieces of the data. After we've created our join, click OK. I want to see all the matches, only the matches, and every iteration of the match. I encourage you to click Help and read about how these joins are affected. There's inner joins, left outer joins. You need to understand how those are going to give you different record sets. And name your file. I'm a huge proponent of naming the files good long names. So this is join vendor to employee on new address. When you click OK, IDEA takes those records from both data sets and shows you always in your lower right hand corner, I've got 378, 79 with the address bar across the top, 378 occurrences where that number matched one to the other. So let's go ahead and take the address from our vendor file, highlight it and drag it a little bit. I'm going to put it next to my zip code, and then I'm going to highlight both columns, and I'm going to drag those guys over here next to the address for the employee file. Now that we can see the address from the vendor side by side with the address and zip from the employee, what I want to do is use the new built-in @ function called @SimilarPhrase. And what it's going to do is it's going to take these addresses, now that we know that there's a match on some portion of the data, and it's going to show us how similar those are. Put your mouse over here, right click and say append to field. We're going to call this how close add. Okay, how close are these addresses together? I want to leave it as a virtual numeric, but the @SimilarPhrase @ function gives you 6 decimal places of precision. So give it 6 decimal places. Now here's another way that I can get to the equation editor. If I know the equation, I can simply type it right here. If I don't, I can click on the calculator button. It opens up the equation editor for me. Open up the matching section. Click on similar phrase, and there's a whole bunch of detail and information on how to use that @ function. Really cool. All right, double click on similar phrase. What is the first string that will be compared to the second string, and do I care about case sensitivity? I don't in this case because I have already brought it down to just the numbers on the addresses matching. My first parameter is the vendor address. My second parameter, or second string, is the employee address. I'm going to see how similar the address is to the address. Okay? Let's evaluate it. See the number 0.39. It's a 39% match between that first record. Let's go ahead and say validate and exit and OK. And I've got my how close address number now. All right, what I like to do now is I'm going to go and I'm going to index this on my new column, how close addresses, in descending order. I want the big numbers up on top. So a 100% match means this address is exactly like this address, and we can eyeball that and see that that is the case. So I can immediately say that those are 100% matches, but let's scroll on down here to where we get to the 95% matches, or something lower than that. Here's one 95%. 1381 Claremont ST, 1381 Claremont Street. So it's a 95% match because somebody shortcutted the street from S-T-R-E-E-T. Same thing over here. There's some periods. Same thing over here. Lane, L-N. Now you need to have a decision made. What constitutes something that I need to be aware of? And an easy way to do that in IDEA is to do a simple extraction of the records that meet your criteria. Put your mouse on the column you're interested in, right click, use the shortcut to display all records where the how close address is greater than or equal to, say, 80%. Click OK. IDEA applies a little criteria for you, and now only items with 80% or greater are contained in your record set. All right. Now once you've got a good result, you need to do this time and time again, each month, each quarter, what have you. Home tab, main ribbon, click Project Overview. Project Overview, that utility. Pretty vanilla right now. I haven't done a whole lot of work in this project. But if I expand out the nodes of the master vendor table, you can see that I appended a field and that I did a visual connector to create a file called Join Vendor to Employee on New Address. I appended a field. This is the one caveat with Visual Connector. You need to do this manually. All right, and how you do that is create a macro. Creating a macro puts it into a script editor definition mode, which says what type of macro do you want to create. IDEA script, that's that ugly Visual Basic code. Don't want to see that. Visual script, flowchart. Show me how we humans can read this and make it effective. Now that you're in the script creation mode, click, click, click. Okay? The reason I'm getting this warning is because I have two further steps out here. I appended a field and I indexed it. Now that I've got all of the items in the whole string highlighted, I've got no more warnings. The warnings are not bad, they're just telling you you've missed something. Now that I've identified everything that I'm interested in scripting, I've told it to create me the flowchart, the visual script. I simply click Finish. IDEA creates the script from scratch, encompassing everything that you did to get to that final result. And it shows you step by step. You imported, you appended, imported, appended, visual connector, appended, indexed. Everything is done. Last step is simply save this as import. Let's see, what would we save this as? How close are addresses? Hit save. You notice it's saving it into the macros folder of my project. So when I click save and I close out Project Overview, go down to the Library tab in my current project, and now I've got a little macro sitting there ready to be used. I can double click on it. It'll bring the macro up. I can hit run. I go to the macros menu. I can open it. It's sitting there ready to run. Or I can hit run and it'll do the same thing for me. So that's the beginning to end of how to look at some @functions, how to properly use some @functions, how to implement the add functions to create a result, and then have IDEA script that result for you. All right, so there's your broad overview on how to use some add functions, how to use project overview, and I would encourage you to start trying it out. You can't break anything, you can't hurt anything, but it is a great way to save yourself a bunch of time. Here's my contact information. Long live the 20-minute rule. If you get into using that project overview and some add function, you have a few questions, unlimited. Call this phone number, 888-641-2800, option 4. Have the help desk walk you through how to use that. Again, my name is Scott Smith. I'm the sales engineer here at Automation Services. I want to thank you for giving me a few minutes of time to go over add functions inside of IDEA and how to automate those processes in Project Overview.